All right, let's dive in. If you've ever played around with generative AI, you know that feeling, right? You type in a question and boom, out comes this perfect, polished answer. And for a second, you feel like you've instantly leveled up. It's this incredible rush of competence.
You know, the creators of South Park absolutely nailed this. There's that scene where Randy and Towley use an AI to come up with ideas, and they are just instantly sold on their own genius. The AI spits out words like innovative and fantastic, and they just eat it up. And it's hilarious because, let's be honest, it's so relatable.
And that really gets to the heart of what we're talking about today. Does AI actually make us smarter? Or is it just giving us this, I don't know, this dangerous illusion of knowledge? So let's dig into the science and see what it actually says.
Okay, so first, we've got to wrap our heads around this weird paradox. All the data shows that, yeah, using AI can make our work better. But there's something else going on. Something kind of strange is happening to our ability to tell if our work is actually any good.
I mean, study after study confirms it. When you give people really complex tasks, like, say, a bunch of tricky logical reasoning problems, the ones using AI tend to get better results. But that little performance bump, it's kind of a smokescreen for a much more complicated story about what's happening inside our own heads.
So check this out. This visual comes from a really key study. Researchers had people solve LSAT problems, those super hard logic puzzles. Now, the group using AI, they scored about 3 points higher than the folks who didn't. Sounds like a clear win, right? Well, here's the twist. They thought they did way, way better. They overestimated their own score by an average of 4 points. So the AI didn't just make them better at the task, it made them way more overconfident, creating this huge gap between how well they thought they did and, well, reality.
So, why does this happen? To really get it, we need to talk about a really fundamental skill we all have, a skill that AI seems to be messing with. And that skill has a name. It's called metacognition. You can think of it as your brain's internal quality control. It's that little voice that tells you, yeah, I get this, or, maybe I'm just guessing here. Good metacognition is absolutely crucial for learning anything, for getting better, for knowing when you're in over your head. And, well, it seems to be the very thing that's taking a hit when we use AI. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Isn't this just the Dunning-Kruger effect? Where the people who know the least are the most confident. But what the research is showing is actually something new, and frankly, a bit more concerning. AI seems to flatten that curve. It's not just the rookies who get overconfident. Nope, it's pretty much everyone. No matter your skill level, if you use AI, you're likely to overestimate your performance. It kind of warps everyone's self-perception. So the big question is how? How is AI doing this to our brains? Well, there's a really powerful new theory that might explain it. Researchers are starting to call it the great decoupling. Okay, so a researcher named Christopher Koch puts it like this. Think about it. Normally, the stuff you produce, like an essay you write or some code you build, it's a pretty good mirror of what you actually understand. But with AI, everything changes. You can get an expert-level result with a total beginner's understanding. The AI basically splits apart or decouples what you can do from what you actually know. And this visual just illustrates the process perfectly. On one hand, you have the AI, which gives you the super fast, shiny path to a great-looking output. We see that polished result, and our brain immediately goes, wow, look what I did, and her self-assessment just skyrockets. But at the same time, that slower, harder path, the one where you actually struggle and build real deep understanding, that gets totally ignored. We end up judging ourselves based on the AI's smooth performance, not on what's actually in our own heads. And this whole decoupling thing, it's not just some abstract theory. We can actually see it happening in the real world. A perfect example is what scientists are calling the crutch effect. Take this field experiment. A group of students used a GPT-powered tutor for their assignments, and while they were using it, their performance went through the roof. It was a dramatic improvement. But here's the real kicker. Later on, when they had to take a test without the AI, those same students, they actually did worse than the students who never used the AI tutor at all. So the AI acted like a crutch. It helped them get through the work, sure, but it completely took the place of the hard thinking they needed to do to actually learn the material for themselves. And you have to realize this isn't just about one person or one student. When you imagine this effect scaled up across millions of people, well, the consequences could be huge. And it turns out AI doesn't affect everyone the same way either. For instance, a study looked at new programmers and found that AI can actually make this skill gap even wider. The students who were already pretty good, they used AI to work faster, to accelerate stuff they already understood. But the students who were struggling, they used it as a total crutch. They relied on it so much that they ended up with what the researchers perfectly called an illusion of competence. They walked away thinking they were rock stars, when in reality, they hadn't learned much at all. Let's be clear, the stakes here are incredibly high. What happens when millions of us start to lose that ability to know what we actually know? You get a hollowing out of real expertise. Critical thinking skills go down. It becomes way easier for misinformation to spread. And ultimately, it just leads to bad decisions, both in our jobs and in our personal lives.
So what's the solution? Panic? Abandon AI altogether? No, of course not. The answer is to fundamentally change how we think about it, how we interact with it. We need to go from being a passive consumer to being an active partner. There's this fantastic metaphor from Christopher Dedette at Harvard that I just love. He says to think of AI like the owl of wisdom that sat on the shoulder of the Greek goddess Athena. The owl is there to help, to add to her wisdom. It's a tool that serves her. She's the one in charge. The owl doesn't get to run the show.
And that right there is the mindset shift we all need. We have to stop using AI like it's some kind of magic answer machine. Instead, we need to start treating it like a thinking partner. A tool that actually helps us think more deeply, not less.
So what does that look like in practice? Well, here's a quick toolkit. First, exploration. Don't just ask for the answer. Use AI to explore a topic from all sides. Second, challenge. Use it to poke holes in your own arguments. Ask it, what am I missing here? Where are the weaknesses? Third, pairing perspectives. Tell it to give you the counterargument or to compare and contrast different sources. And finally, and this is maybe the most important one, reflection. Make the AI explain itself. Ask it how it got to that conclusion. That way, you're not just blindly accepting the result, you're engaging with the process. And that is how we keep our own minds sharp.
At the end of the day, this all comes down to a really fundamental question for our time. The real value of thinking isn't just about getting the right answer. It's about the struggle, the process of getting there. And if we start outsourcing that entire process to a machine, what are we losing? We're not just risking a skill, we're risking a kind of intellectual laziness. So the next time you use one of these incredibly powerful tools, it's worth asking yourself a simple question. Am I using this to help me think or to stop thinking altogether?